I'm Dustin, Prince of Aphotic Realm, and this is Bo, my indie author friend.
Fabulous powers will be revealed to you the day we hold aloft our mics and say,
I have the Geekdom! Geek-Men and the Masters of the ThunderNerds! ThunderNerds! Ho! Welcome to another episode of Geek-Men and the ThunderNerds. I'm Dustin.
I'm Bo.
And this is the podcast that talks about all the things you love
without all the hate.
Today we have author, streamer, chef, jack of all trades, Kai Kiriyama. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, guys.
All right. We're talking about Zelda today.
Yeah, focusing on Zelda. Yeah, you think.
We've been chatting actually here for a while. We're probably going to post some of this stuff in Patreon later on. We've been talking for quite a while, and none of it has been about Zelda.
We're really good at staying on topic.
But we've been having fun, so Kai, tell us, what do you like about Zelda, or what do you think about the new game? Have you had a chance to play the new game at all?
So, Breath of the Wild, I don't own a Switch, so I haven't really had much of a chance to play it. I played about 20 minutes of it or so, and it was very early on in the game. So I was playing with my sister's house, and my little sister got a Switch for her birthday last year, and so I was playing at her place. I guess it was before her birthday last year. Whatever. Anyway, we were playing it, and it was like fairly early on in the game, so I didn't really have much of a chance to do a lot of stuff. We found one of those little, like, whatchamacallit guys? The little leaf face guys.
Fairy leaf things. Yeah.
Oh, I am just blanking. This is my favorite game series, guys, and I'm just like, brain just stopped working there. Yeah, the little Deku dudes. Koroks. The Koroks.
Yes, thank you.
And so we found one of those, like, random. I'm like, what is all of this ridiculous stuff? And she's like, oh, that's a Korok. You gotta do a thing. And I'm like, okay. We were in the middle. There were some trees. I climbed some trees. I didn't get I didn't have a weapon, but I had a horse. So we got attacked, and I was like, oh my god, I don't know how to fight. So it's like the horse, and I'm like, why is the horse? It was so beautifully complicated to play. Just this, like, 10-minute little sector of the game. And I was like, that was fun. It was like, at the end of the visit, too, it's like, I have to go catch my bus to get home because it's going to take me 2.5 hours to get home. So thanks for letting me play for 10 minutes, but oh my god, it was beautiful. The game itself was just gorgeous.
It's come a long way since hacking down, grass, right?
Yeah.
Rolling into the pots to break them?
Yeah.
They changed that whole system. They went back to that not holding your hand like the original Zelda.
Yeah.
And they just set you loose, and everybody starts off differently on that game. You don't even have to go and do all the dungeons if you don't want to, which was insane to think about.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought you still had to do some of this stuff.
No, you don't even, if you can put it in work and just go straight to Ganon if you want to.
Yes, you can. It's super hard. That's like,
it's incredibly hard.
Because you have, like, your standard 3 hearts to start with, and you have no weapons, and so you can literally just run there in your underpants and just, like, take on Ganon with no weapons, no material, or, like, I really love the aspect that they added where you can, like, cook food, where you're like gathering your, like, materials that you get, and as you do in any, RPG game, but you'll get, like, food, and so, like, you can. So I was climbing trees to pick apples. So that was my Zelda experience. I found with Breath of the Wild. I rode a horse that I couldn't control because it was panicking, and I'm like, why is the horse not listening? And it's like going left, and I'm trying to make it go right. And my sister was like, oh, you have to push this button to, like, calm the horse down so it likes you and it'll listen to you. And I'm like, this is complicated. And then we were like climbing trees to pick. We were picking apples, and then we had like I really love the tools that they gave you in this one. She had like the magnet thing where you can like lift stuff up off the ground that you couldn't normally lift.
Yeah.
And so we had to like lift a boulder that was like 100 links put together. It was like this huge boulder, and put it into a hollow log to make the Korok pop out. And I thought that was fantastic. The weapons that they've given you were the most fantastic. I haven't actually sat to play it for much longer than it, but I've watched a few of the like playthroughs on YouTube and stuff, and a couple of the Let's Plays, just so that I had more of an idea of what the game was about. And it was so big.
It does look pretty expansive.
It's incredible how vast it is.
Like when they were teasing it, do you remember? Like way back when, because this had been in production for like what, 3 years or 5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Like as soon as Skyward Sword had come out, we had Skyward Sword for about a year, and then Breath of the Wild started getting teased. Basically, it's like there's a new Zelda game in the works. It was pretty much it felt like it was almost immediate after Skyward Sword, and they were like back in some of their like what's the Nintendo thing? Treehouse? Like the Nintendo Treehouse stuff and the Nintendo Directs. They were like talking, and I guess it was an E3 presentation is what I'm specifically thinking of. They had just this big, like they had the original teaser was Link in the blue with the bow and arrow shooting a big robot, one of those big guardian robot things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all we got. And I think you had a horse at one point. And that's all we got for our teaser. And then it was like just like a landscape panorama that we got.
Yeah.
And then that was all the teaser. And then they would come out and talk about it on stage. And the one thing that are like, yeah, so all of this landscape, those mountains that look so tiny in the distance, you can actually go to those mountains. And that is what we are trying to like really promote with this, is we want this to be the most open world experience that we can give you, and there is no right way to play this kind of open world Zelda. And when I saw that, I was just like, what? And then my second reaction was, I don't trust that.
Yeah,
because that's what they promised with Skyward Sword, was a huge
in all games.
It seems like that's what they always promise.
Yeah, they always promise something bigger.
Yeah, but I was like, so I love Zelda.
Yeah.
But I don't trust Zelda.
But they did. They followed that up. They followed really through. Nice because they came back and they had that same footage with that same opening with a panoramic view, and then all of a sudden they started playing it, and everybody they lost it. And
because they went to the mountains. And they showed us that you could actually go to the Bloody Mountains, and you're just like, well, okay then.
And that's when they revealed like the climbing mechanic and all that stuff.
Is that where they?
Yeah, because they hadn't mentioned that before, I don't believe.
No,
and then all of a sudden he's like Shadow Claws in it, and you're like, what?
Right.
You can climb in this game?
Is that the one? Is that the one where they also? I think that was the same trailer where they also introduced the climate changes, where he actually interacts with the environment, where it's like, for the most part, you start like in the main, like on the lower lands in the fields where it's just like normal and you can run around in your underwear and whatever. But then you get up into the mountains and all of a sudden it's actually cold and it is snowing and Link is shivering, and
you gotta build a fire.
You can build a fire, or there were like you could cook food, like. So, for me, like Breath of the Wild, I always joke around that it's like video games don't cater to my taste, which is, I was saying earlier, I play a lot of Stardew Valley because it's literally everything that I want just about in a game. There's a minor dress up aspect that you can put in Stardew Valley. You can buy like hats and stuff. So you get to cook, you get to harvest your stuff, and you get to dress up. And there's a story, and this is Breath of the Wild. Put all of that into the same like into a game series that we already are familiar with, that I already loved, that I already had a connection to some of these characters, and they put all of these aspects. I'm like, this game is marketed 100% toward me specifically, and I feel so attacked right now.
Well, what was so great is because it's what was so great about it is because they really allowed you to be creative playing that game. There was no one way to do anything.
No, and the fact that you can just literally hardcore mode it, and you don't have to do the 4 beasts, and you don't have to do anything. If you have like the game mechanics down enough, and you just want to pick some apples and then run to Ganon, you can do that. You might die.
Yeah. And people should really look up some trick videos of people just doing some amazing things, like solving puzzles or launching themselves on boulders to get to impossible places, like way in advance. It's so fun to watch people do it. But and to go back, you mentioned Stardew Valley. For anybody listening, you Twitch Stardew Valley. You can totally watch Kai do that and play that game. I
do. I stream mostly Stardew Valley. I have other games, and I promised I would play other games, but you can find me on Twitch. It's Starpop PROD, like short for Productions. So I work under Starpop Productions. We might change that to Starpop Games. I'm not sure. But you can find me on Twitch, and I do that sometimes when I have time.
We'll put the links. We'll put the links.
Good. Yeah. I did not stream at all this week, and I feel really bad. But I was doing other stuff. I was doing other stuff, like preparing for this.
Which we appreciate.
Yeah.
I am so happy to be here, you guys. Thanks for having me.
This is fun.
You guys are fantastic. This is you guys have officially popped my podcast cherry. Ooh. So thank you for that. Am I allowed to say that? Am I going to get censored?
No, you can say
I'm going
to
have to put a bleep over the word podcast.
Yeah.
Well, considering all the... Like, how many Zelda games have you played? Like, just ballpark if you have to, because I know there's many.
A ton.
Okay, it's easier for me to say which ones I haven't played.
Fair.
I have not played the CDI Zelda games that are not canon, and they don't count, but they are hilarious. There's you can find walkthroughs and playthroughs online.
Game Grumps.
So Game Grumps actually. So I've watched those. Those are hilarious, and I have not played like the original Nintendo Zelda games, and I have no intention of playing them because I'm a terrible fake fan who doesn't deserve to be on this podcast. But
no judgment here. I've never beaten the original. I'll say that.
I played it like once when I was a kid, and I hated it so much that I decided that this game series was garbage, and I went back to Mario. But then when Ocarina of Time came out on the N64, I was like, okay. As was the thing with most people when they played Ocarina of Time, like that game still gets 10 out of 10 reviews for the most part, because it was so groundbreaking in, what was it, 1999 or whatever when it came out, because it was so unlike anything else that you possibly, like, it was so unlike anything else up to that point in the series especially. And so it was like the first time there was like actually an in-depth story, and like your 3D characters, you actually get to see Link in 3D doing polygonal things and fighting polygonal bad guys. So when that one came out, that was like okay, I'm gonna give this series a second chance. And then I played Majora's Mask, and that just like solidified my love for the whole thing. But going back to those games, it's so rough now. Oh my god.
So is that is Ocarina your favorite?
No.
What's your favorite Zelda? No favorite.
Okay, so that it changes. It changes depending on my mood. Usually, I will say that Majora's Mask is my favorite because it was different from a lot of the other concepts of the game. Yeah. But right now, I really, 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 really love. Oh my God, what's Link Between Worlds? The one on the 3DS.
I really want to play that one because that's like a sequel to my favorite. Because Link to the Past is my absolute favorite, and I really want to play that. So it's good.
It's so fun. The game the game mechanics in Link Between Worlds,
Yes.
because you travel literally. So you have okay, I'm not going to spoil too much, but you literally have and I think it might be my favorite because it's a pun in and of itself. Is, you start in Hyrule, and as is your world, and then some bad stuff happens, and you now can travel to a different world, and it is a mirror world of your kingdom, and it is called, I am not kidding, it is called Lorule.
Yeah, I've heard that. They can get away with it. I'm not even going to hate on it. It's like that's kind of funny.
So now you are in the Upside Down. You are in your mirror world, and to pass between the worlds, you turn into a drawing on the wall.
Yeah, that's the part I was like, oh.
And they did a similar thing in Mario Odyssey on the Switch, where you can like make yourself go onto the wall, and then it's a 2D side-scrolling thing. Like, I don't know if you guys have played Mario Odyssey. I know it's basically that. So there are puzzles where you have to incorporate making yourself flat on the wall to get rupees or heart pieces or whatever it is that you need to do, and to traverse around like puzzles and obstacles. You have to make yourself flat on the wall, and then there's more obstacles that like you can't pass over certain parts of the terrain. So like if there's anything on the wall, like if there's a torch or whatever on the wall, you can't pass over that. So you have to, or if there's like a buttress or something that like you can't physically pass through, and it's not a solid wall, you can't like switch. So you have to figure out how to go across all of this stuff, and it's so cool. And then I
really want to play it, man.
It's so good. It's fantastic. I haven't finished it because I'm really bad at finishing games. I will I will buy. I got like a bunch of video games for Christmas on my DS, and I haven't finished any of them. So, but it's like they're like 40 or 50-hour games, and then it's like I can only play for this long at a time. And if I'm playing on my 3DS, I can't stream it, so I can't stream playing Zelda, where if I stream whatever I've got on Steam or on the PlayStation, then it's totally different, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then if I'm not playing video games, I'm writing or I'm at my day job. So it's a balance. You got to find a balance.
Yeah.
That's definitely key.
It's funny how you have to kind of like make it a job to be able to enjoy it and put it into your life.
It's so terrible. You have to schedule.
You can't do it. Yeah.
It's like you go from, okay, it is work time now, and then it's like 5 o'clock hits, it is supper time now, and then it's like 7 o'clock hits. If the dishes aren't done, you don't get leisure time because you have to go to bed at like 9 o'clock. So it's like work time is now, and then supper time is now.
It's funny. I worked with a guy who was like that, and I used to think he was absolute crazy. Straight crazy. He used to have like one of those like kitchen timers, and you would turn it for an hour, and then he would sit there, and it would go tick, 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 and tick away, and then he would, it dinged, and if it dinged and he hadn't already stopped what he was doing, he would just, boom, hit the button and turned off his computer. Because if he did anything other than that, if he went to go shut down his computer, he would get distracted and do something else. So then he would set it again, turn back on his computer, and go to the next social media platform. Back then, he did MySpace, then Facebook, and then the news or email, and then he did 15 minutes or 20 minutes for shower. He set the timer for 20 minutes shower, and as soon as it dinged, he was done. He had to get out, and then that was his morning. That was how he told us how he got ready for work. So it's like he got up like 4 hours before he had to be at work and did all of his social media and email, and I thought, wow, dude, you are crazy. And now I'm like 30 something, and it's like,
it sucks,
wow.
Right?
I feel like I'm now getting to the point. I had the thought the other day. It's like, I really should schedule a time to do social media and only do my social media during that time frame. And then I'm like, Oh my gosh, I am literally that guy that I used to work with.
I've become.
Whatever happened to him?
Whatever happened?
He's still ticking away. I mean, I don't work with him now. I changed jobs, but yeah, I'm still friends with him on Facebook. He pops in every now and then. He's like, "Oh,
for his hour."
Yeah. Oh, hey, how you doing?
You know? Yeah, dude, his hour.
Yeah.
That's insane.
What baffled me is that he wouldn't just simply close the browser. He hit the button on the front of the computer to turn it off. It's just like, oh my gosh. Anyway.
He graces me with his presence during his magic hour.
Yes.
Oh my god. That's okay, but like when you're sitting down to play something like Breath of the Wild that is as big as it is, and you're just like, I know that I am going to get at least 100 hours out of this game. Well, like, look at all the people doing like we mentioned, all the people doing the tricks, right? So, like, you have to, so for some of those tricks, you have to have a powerful weapon, because there's, like, one where I've seen guys, they'll, like, you have this one weapon that pauses time for whatever object that you're interacting with.
Yeah.
So you will pause time, and, like, so if you were going to cut down a tree, for example, I don't know if you can actually apply it to this, but like it would be like, so to explain it, it's like if you would pause time and then on a tree and then you would like hit it with an axe, but it wouldn't fall because time is paused for that tree. So then while it's paused, you like smash it with an axe, and when time unpauses, then all of the damage that you've just done would happen to the tree. So like if you're like smashing it with an axe, it's going to like explode into a million splinters kind of thing. I don't know. I don't think that's exactly how it works in the game, because I never did get that far. I understand the concept, but that is the concept of like like this weapon. So these dudes will like pause, like they will freeze time on like a mine cart or a log, and then start wailing on it with their most powerful weapon that does the most damage. And so, and then they will jump on it, and then when time unfreezes, it launches because you have just put so much force into this frozen item. So when time resets itself, all of that force has to go somewhere. So that's how they launch themselves. And then they'll be like at the like top of the arch and then jump off, and then like you're just like, how? Or it'll launch you because it's like it launches it, but it also causes damage, so it launches Link. So you need to have a lot of health, a powerful weapon, and this time freezing weapon. So, like, just running through this game, I'm like, why would you just run through this game? There is so much to do. And then you get to do all of these crazy fun tricks. Like, to me, it doesn't make sense to speed run a game like that. However, having said that, it makes 100% sense to me to speed run a game that you've played a million times, such as Ocarina of Time, and those cutscenes are not skippable.
Oh,
So you have to sit there and watch these cutscenes, and you can't go faster, and you can't go faster, but it's just like, it gets tedious after a while.
Yeah.
So, but like, for me, it's like, I've played Ocarina a million times, not a million. I've probably played it all the way through 10 times or so, just because it's like one of those old, comforting, familiar things. I still don't have all of the temples memorized. I can do the first 3. In Ocarina of Time, the first 3 temples are the Deku Tree, and Dongo's Cavern, and Lord Jabba Jabu's Belly. Like, you literally get eaten by a whale. And I have those 3 temples and how to get from where you start to the end of those 3 temples. And then when you go forward in time 7 years, I can do that without, like, having to think about it. It's just like, yeah, this is how you do. But after that, and like I said, I've played this game all the way through at least 10 times. I don't know any of that. And so, like, I don't have it memorized. I have to, like, still pull up a walkthrough to get through certain temples because I just don't remember it. And, like, the puzzles are so intricate, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I'm not going to be one of those hating on the water temple, because everybody hates on the water temple, but like, to actually have that water temple memorized is a feat in and of itself. There's so many baby steps on that thing.
Oh god,
it's so intricate. Like, you got to raise this high and go here, and then you got to lower it, and you got to raise it and lower it.
And if you mess up, there's not really a way to get back in that water temple.
Yeah, so it's I understand why people get frustrated with it and they all hoot on it, but yeah, I don't blame you for not having that thing memorized.
I don't have that one memorized. I can't do the forest temple either. Like when you go forward in time 7 years, like at the Deku tree at the beginning is like is it Deku or Deku? I always pronounce it with an A, but it's probably Deku.
I've always said Deku.
Yeah, so have I.
I've always heard it.
Because for me, it's probably Canadian A, right? Like being
Deku.
Canadian Deku A.
A boot?
But it's probably Deku, like in My Hero Academia. It's probably Deku. Whatever.
I'm gonna go into this Deku tree, and then after that, I'm gonna go give Ganon an Edmonton handshake.
I mean, that's accurate, but like that.
If you want to understand the reference to the Edmonton handshake, people, you're going to have to listen to the wonderful special features, extras in Patreon. You'll just have to figure it out.
Just Google it.
Thanks.
I mean, don't do that. It's a Canadian thing.
What?
We don't have Google here. I live in an igloo and it's cold.
Google?
Gil. I don't even know how you spell Gil. Eh? Gil.
Well, you mentioned the writing in games. You also cook in real life, Kai.
I do.
And we asked you. We didn't ask you. We forced you, basically, to do a Zelda related recipe for us.
For fear of Edmonton handshake.
Yes.
I only put that fear of the Edmonton handshake into you this morning. So.
We retroactively put it in you.
Plot holes.
Well, just don't worry. It'll all be retconned in the new season.
Yeah. We'll recut it.
It'll be fine.
You didn't even say that just now.
Are we getting into some like 616 multiverse business here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Yes, you did force me to create a recipe specifically.
Yes, and we're gonna have it up on. You're gonna have it up, and I believe we're gonna have it up too. So your choice, listeners, where to go for this, and pictures as well. Mm-hmm. But Kai, what did you make us?
So I decided I was gonna make something like super, super complicated and to show off what I can do. And then I realized that my skill level is probably not the same as your skill level. So I didn't make something super, super complicated.
Thank you.
For spoilers, my original plan was to make what I had called the 7 Sages dumplings. And they would have been like stuffed steam bun style dumplings with 7 different. I guess it's 6, not 7. I just always said 7, so it would have been 6 sages, like from Ocarina of Time, so that each one would have had a different filling based on the different sages.
Ooh.
But then I realized that I'm also lazy and busy, and I have a lot of trouble coming up with recipes because when I cook something, I kind of just, like, I know how to cook things. Like, I know how to make a basic cheesecake. Like, it's like this, and this. It's cream cheese, egg, and this, right? So you put that in a bowl and you make it. So I don't ever really follow a recipe once I know how to do something. So, like, making mac and cheese, it's like I put the ingredients in the pot and 20 minutes later it's mac and cheese. So this was like really super hard for me to actually sit down and write out my process and to create something to share with you guys that was also thematic and not overly complicated.
And we appreciate the effort.
Yes, thank you.
So to our listeners.
I sure hope so. So what I've come up with is 2 versions of the same recipe.
Oh, okay.
And it's really simple. It's just because I have food allergies and I can't eat shellfish or tree nuts, and I created a dessert.
Okay.
So and it's the same recipe. We tested it out last night and it tastes fantastic. It is for everybody else who's not allergic to nuts. I made the Deku nut crumble.
Okay.
And for everybody who's like me, who doesn't like nuts or can't eat nuts, it is a hot buttered apple crumble, which is one of the simplest recipes in hot buttered apple is one of the simplest recipes in Breath of the Wild.
Indeed it is. Okay.
So we've got you covered on both ways. And literally the difference is 2 ingredients. Okay. The process is exactly the same. So it's an apple crumble with nuts in it is where we went for this. So
nice.
Your ingredients to make it. You need 2 teaspoons of butter or margarine, 4 large apples sliced into like you would be making a pie, so you slice them thin. Personally, I like Pink Lady apples for this recipe, or like Braeburn apples, like the ones that come like they're big and they're firm and they're kind of tart but not overly tart. You could use any apple you want. I wouldn't recommend Granny Smith because then you have to adjust the sugar levels so that they're not like super sour.
Man,
but you could use, so you need about 4 large apples. If you're going to use smaller apples like Spartan or Macintosh, use 6 because you need to have enough to fill your pan. If you're going to go for the nut version, you need to add half a teaspoon of almond extract. If you're not going to go for the nut version, just don't put the nuts in. It's pretty simple. You need half a cup of flour, a teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 cup of sugar, and a pinch of salt. Now, when I say a pinch of salt, I literally just mean like a 1/4 teaspoon. Like you need a little bit, and you just need to put it in there for the chemical reaction to happen. So that is this is your filling. So for this, you take that 2 teaspoons of butter and you butter your pan. And I used a 9x9 square glass baking dish. Heat your oven to 350 while you're prepping everything else. Slice your apples, put them in a big bowl, and add your half teaspoon of almond extract. Stir that all up so that the apples are coated in it. Then you add your flour, sugar, salt, and cinnamon. Mix that, put that all in a separate bowl first, mix it together, and then pour it on the apples and toss that all together in the big bowl so that the apples are coated. You'll probably have extra of this powdery mixture in the bottom of your bowl. That's totally fine. You're just going to dump it all into the pan in a second anyway. If you're not using the almond extract, get a little bit of extra butter. You can use it. You can do this either way, even if you are using the almond extract. But take another little bit of butter and cut it into chunks and then put it in your apple mixture when you dump it into your pan. Just because then you get your hot buttered apple flavor, and it helps make it thicker so it doesn't fall apart as much. And that's what you want. That's what the flour is for. And then if you're gluten-free, you can replace the flour with either rice flour or almond flour, and then you get that more nutty flavor. You can do coconut flour too, but again, it's really up to you. So then once you mix that all in, you dump it into your pre-buttered 9x9 inch pan, and you smooth it out so that you've got your nice layers of apple and sugar. And there, like I said, there will be extra sugar and flour kind of in the bottom of your pan, or in the bottom of the bowl. You can just put that right on top. It doesn't really matter. It's there to sweeten it and thicken it. So then you got to get your crumble topping. You need to get another bowl. And in this, you put 1.5 cups of oatmeal. And I like to use the quick cook oats, not instant. Don't use instant oatmeal. It doesn't work. Quick cook is the best for this, I find, but you can use whatever. You can use steel cut if you prefer, or whatever oatmeal. Just don't use instant oatmeal. Then you put 1/2 cup of flour. And again, you can use almond flour or coconut flour or rice flour. I just use wheat flour because it's what I have, and I'm allergic to everything. Then you add 3/4 cup of packed brown sugar. You can reduce that if you want to about 1/2 cup. Depends how sweet you want it, and it depends on what apples you're using. If you're using something tart like what I use, with the Pink Lady or the Braeburn or Spartan apples, use a 3/4 cup. If you're going to use something like Golden Delicious apples or some Honeycrisp, something that's sweeter than that, you can reduce the topping. But again, this is a topping, so you want to lay it on thick. So I use 3/4 cup brown sugar. If you're using the almonds, this is where you put it in. You put about 1/4 cup. You can up it to 1/2 cup. It depends how much you want, and again, how much how thick you want this topping layer. In the 9x9 pan, this filled it to the very top and gave me a really nice, thick, crunchy layer on top. And then you need 1/2 cup of butter. And this butter has to be cold. But what you do is you mix your oatmeal, flour, sugar, and almonds, and you mix that all together first. Then you take the cold butter, and you need like the half cup of butter, and you cut it into your mixture so that it gets crumbly. Like if you were making a pie crust, I guess is the best way to describe it. So you can either use knives. I use my fingers because I'm like, I have tools, but I don't want to use tools. It's just so much easier to use my hands. So you like mix it in there and like you crumble it up between your fingers so that it incorporates but isn't smooth. So you want it because you want it crumbly. And then you put that on top of you, like once it's all mixed to whatever however fine you want it, you put it on the top of the of your apples in the pan, and you stick it in the oven. So hopefully you've preheated your oven. I really hope I said that at the beginning of this recipe. You want it at about 350 to 375. It depends on your oven. Mine's stupid, so I always turn it up just a little bit more, but 350 is where you want it, and you want to bake it in there for about 25 to 35 minutes, depending on how thick you sliced your apples. So once that's, like, you want to stab it with a fork to make sure that the apples are cooked.
Give it an Edmonton handshake.
Context clues. Give it an Edmonton handshake and make sure that the apples are cooked. You take it out. Let it sit for about 10 minutes to, like, thicken up, because that's why you've got the flour and the sugar in there. You want it to, like, kind of make, like, a nice, thick, juicy pie filling, kind of. Right? And then scoop it into a bowl, and I usually serve it with milk on top.
Ooh.
Or ice cream.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, if you put a little milk on it, it's almost like a breakfast food, because you've got like the crunchy granola flavor on the top and then the apple, so you can put ice cream on it. But I didn't have ice cream, so I put a little bit of like whole milk into the bowl.
Oh, that sounds good.
It is so good because you get the hot apple and the cold milk, and it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, so that's my recipe. And if you're allergic to nuts, just don't put the almond extract or the almonds on top. Nice. Boom, and then you just got hot buttered apple crumble.
That was nice of you to think of that too.
Well, like I said, I'm allergic to nuts. So.
A lot of people are. That's a huge thing that people don't think about. So, thank you for doing that. That sounds delicious, man.
Oh my god! I made a pan last night just to double check this recipe, because I know what I'm doing, but like figuring out the exact measurements are impossible for me without because I don't ever use exact measurements, so I'm like eyeballing it and I forgot to mention, you have to pack the brown sugar when you measure it. You can't just scoop it. You have to pack it down a little bit, because it doesn't give you the same ratio. You have to pack it just a little bit, not so that it's like super hard, but just enough so it feels like you're putting a ton of sugar in there with the brown sugar in the crumble topping. But yeah, so I tried this all last night, and there's like one little tiny scoop of it left. It turned out so good.
Sounds delicious.
Thank you.
I know people are going to be all over it. So, links below so you can make that yourself at home.
Yeah, we'll have the links
I'm going to
below.
try that.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Geek-Men! Hi guys, it's Bo here. You're probably thinking right now, hey, jerkface, why'd you just stop the episode? It was getting good. I was enjoying it. It's because it ran longer than we expected it to, because we were having a good time too. And we didn't want to cut any of it. So we decided to make it a two-parter. And that means, we had to cut it somewhere. That means here. But please, we want you to come back next week. Unless, of course, you're a patron. That means you can listen to it early. It's a lot of perks to being a patron. Really are. But real quick, I wanted to throw in Joe's Kick of the Week. Another Kickstarter project that from Comic Kick or Horror Kick, links below, that may interest any of our fellow Thunder Nerds. This week we're throwing a spotlight on Grim Reaper. It's a card game for 2 to 5 players, guaranteed to be done within 20 minutes, and you are all vying to be the next Grim Reaper, as he has decided to retire. And as they have promised, it will cause resentment amongst all your friends. But it is, they do say it's a fun and morbid undead family fun card game. So, probably a horror akin to Monopoly, because we all know what Monopoly does to all of us. So links below on that. You'll have to the 26th to go check out that project, see if you're interested in it. We'll have another one for you next week. And along with the second part of this episode, where we pose a very interesting question that really brought on a very interesting discussion none of us were expecting. So, tune in. Dustin's been Dustin. I've been Bo. Talk to you later, guys.
Boom.